Black Talk Radio.
Welcome to another commentary of Black Talk Radio News. My name, of course, is Scotty Reid. I wanted to just do a quick episode about this integration was the dumbest thing we ever fought for video I came across on TikTok. It had been a while since I've heard such an expression of, I'm just going to call it ignorance. Now, again, my critiques are not personal in nature. I do understand why a lot of people are uninformed about our own Black history. And I know what 20, 30, 40, 50, we go back to the 60s and point to some Black people who were critical of the civil rights movement, even if they changed their tune later on. So this goes back a long way, and it has to do, I think, with not understanding the definitions of words. Again, not being familiar with the history of the United States and Black history in the United States specifically. So let's get into this video and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, I will be pausing it to offer commentary, but it's not a very long video at all. So let's go ahead and start there.
I'm going to say this and you might not like it, but integration was the worst thing that we ever did, that we ever agreed to, that we ever fought for. Because if you just look at what's happening, the goal is to reverse every single thing that we ever fought for. Our ancestors, the people that came before us, fought for. Who the hell convinced us that this was the best idea for Black folk? We fell for the okie doke.
Okay, let me pause it right there and try to make sense of what she just said. What are some of the things that our ancestors fought for? And I'm talking specifically to the descendants of African people who were brought here and enslaved in the United States of America or in North America prior to the United States becoming a nation. All right, they were fighting for freedom from chattel slavery. Is that correct? So is she saying that just because Trump got elected, which is what she's talking about, is integration is going to lead us back into slavery or some notion like that? What else did we fight for? Oh, we fought for equal rights under the law. We fought for our dignity. We fought for, again, our freedom. I'll be remiss if I didn't point out to this young lady and anybody else under the illusion that the United States ever abolished slavery. Again, reading comprehension and getting the full context is very important, especially when we're talking in terms of the history of the United States. The 13th Amendment says slavery and involuntary servitude shall be abolished except as punishment for crime. So that means that slavery was not ended. It just moved from chattel slavery to a new form called prison slavery. And there's been many books written about this, okay? And so when somebody says, you know, fighting for equality is the dumbest thing ever, but they're calling it integration, that just does not compute logically in my brain when I think about, you know, these sort of things. So it's just crazy to me. So let's continue. Again, this is not a very long video.
Hopefully now we'll stop. Because just hearing what he just said about the Department of Education and the civil rights, and if you're caught teaching or whatever he said, he's good.
Okay, so that's the end of the video. She just stopped it right there. I guess she hadn't fully thought about it. So what is she talking about? She's talking about what Donald Trump said he was going to do in terms of transgenderism being taught to children. I actually have a portion, and he said these things before the election, you know, in campaign ads. And a lot of liberals don't want to talk about it. But I'm starting to see now some of these political pundits, even in mainstream media, saying y'all was kind of going too far with this transgender identity stuff. Even if they were speaking in coded terms, it was clear to me what they were talking about. So this is what she's talking about, what Donald Trump said he was going to do. Just a few of the things. But before I get to that, what Trump said, let me recommend to this young lady and anybody else that think that the Jim Crow period of the United States, that is after the Civil War, after Reconstruction, where we enjoyed a brief period of equality and equal rights and all of that good stuff for a time, okay, during Reconstruction. But after Reconstruction, which ended sometime in the 1870s and lasted for about 100 years, maybe a little over 100 years, going up to the 1960s, so about 90 years, there's been many books written on the material, social, political, and legal status and condition of Black Americans in this country. And if anybody thinks that was a joyous period or a joyous time, then you are sadly misinformed. And again, I don't expect, like Malcolm X said, I don't expect the public school system, which is run by our quote-unquote enemies, to be educating our children on our history. That's supposed to be our job as parents. But we live in the age of technology, also the information age, and it's no logical reason or good excuse for anybody not to know this history and to not teach it to their children instead of relying on the school system to educate your child about our people and our struggles. But this is what Donald Trump said. This is what she's talking about in terms of trampling civil rights. Let's go ahead and cue that up.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients.
All right, so you know what? That resonated with a lot of people. And this young lady trying to link Black people's traditional struggle to be, just equal rights under the law, to be treated the same as everybody else. To her to compare that to this transgender identity thing that has really picked up, I would say, since the Obama administration, part of the larger LGBT rights or supposed rights and what have you, there's no connection there between our historic struggle and fight against racism. Transgenderism is not the same. This is not the same. And religiously, as well as socially, Black people, Muslims, and other non-white cultural groups in the United States don't have a problem with what he's talking about. Let's just be real and honest about that. We're talking about an issue that only affects less than probably 1% of Americans. Okay, 1% of Americans. So pandering to this let's call it a special interest group, cost the Democrats a lot of votes because this is a culture shock. Okay, if people are not buying into a person born with a penis can all of a sudden one day claim that they're not a male but a female. It just doesn't work biologically, scientifically, medically, whatever. No, we're not going for that confusion and what have you. And so it's just a shame that this young woman would say that integration was a big mistake. Our people fighting against Jim Crow laws, terrorism, not able to legally own property, not able to vote, that all of that fight was a big mistake because Donald Trump is going to ban transgenderism from the public education system. Make it make sense. All right, please continue to support the production of independent Black media and the upliftment of independent Black voices by making a donation or becoming a subscriber today. Peace and blessings to all.